Hello, I'm Cecily Maxey. I'm going to be reading over my annotated bibliography today. My topic was food import, and I kind of chose this topic honestly because the topic that I wanted to do, I really couldn't find any too much information on it, which was the Texas prison food system. So I decided as my second choice I would do food import. I did pull three articles from the database, which which were the risks we are willing to eat, food imports, and safety. It's out of the Harvard Journal on Legislation. The second one that I had was chemical compositions and heavy metal contents of fresh and imported frozen beef cattle meat available in Reina markets. It's an Asian article of Diary and Food Research, which is the volume 39, and the quantitative approach for risk assessment of African swine fever and classic swine fever introduction into the United States through legal imports of pig and swine imports. And then the last one is chemical compositions and heavy metal contents of local fresh and imported frozen beef cattle meat available in Reina meat markets. Okay, and the annotated bibliography part, the first one is the risks we are willing to eat, food imports and safety, which was published in a Harvard Journal on Legislation. It focuses on the risk of consuming imported foods, and the author, who is John, I believe you say his name, Path or Fath, he states that pathogens such as bacteria and viruses are the main cause for foodborne illnesses. He shows that raw milk and vegetables harbor microorganisms of food related organs such as Salmonella, E. coli, or Listeria. It is argued within the text that the expectations represent unjustifiable and arbitrary discrimination against foreign food importers. The U.S. imports the food while the FDA regulates the food. He also explains the shipping process and how the shipments are targeted. The chemical compositions and heavy metal contents of local fresh and imported frozen beef cattle meat available in Reina markets. It talks about the difference between the fresh and frozen imported cattle meat. He explains that he explains that there is really no difference between the heavy metal meats and the frozen and fresh beef cattle. He conducted an analysis finding the moisture percentage in both fresh and frozen beef cattle meat, and there is also a study conducted in Reina City, Iraq, that tests the heavy metals found in imported frozen and fresh beef cattle meat. There was also a test for toxic minerals and meat. There was also a test for toxic minerals on meat samples from the Reina markets, and from the findings it was determined that freezing does not negatively affect the composition of beef cattle. The quantitative approach for risk assessment of African swine fever and classic swine fever introduction in the United States through legal imports of pigs and swine, which is by Herrera Ibatat and Diana Maria. It created a table to input parameters and probabilities used in the quantitative models for the assessment and exposure of U.S. swine populations to import swine products. Removing the meat subsidy, our cognitive dissonance around animal agriculture, which is the Journal of Internal Affairs by Christina Sewell. Agriculture, it focuses on removing meat subsidy that has an impact on the environment. It describes the current trends in meat consumptions and how it will impact the Earth's ecosystem, making it unstable. It also speaks about the fact that our political leaders do not address the animal derived products that has an impact on our environment. It also explains the consumption of these animal derived products and how it affects our natural resources like water and water that is used to produce livestock. It also shows how the impact of the meat consumption is not just limited to American borders. The U.S. reduces the market prices to import food to local farmers that make the production more efficient. This policy allowed freedom for the production and consumption and drove the demand for healthier fruits and vegetables and other plant-based foods. I would kind of use this in an essay to try to argue um, how some imported foods are, have some unhealthy things in them. I know a lot of our foods here, some is imported from China, some's imported from Mexico, and just the transition and how the food is impacted is how I would use it within an essay to argue, a more healthier way of um, getting food to us here in the U.S. But that's all for today. Thank you so much. Bye bye.